What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. Before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and that the player ratings and potential of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those who are out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those who are out there who just want a few recommendations on what players you could sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So yes, in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we're going to take a look at Aston Villa, Dean Smith's Aston Villa at Villa Park. Great team to do a career mode with this year for one very obvious reason. It's the post-Jack Grealish era. Yes, Aston Villa are a 4.5-star team in the game. As you can see, no European competition, so domestically these are your objectives. Reach the last 16 of the FA Cup, definitely doable, and finish in the top 6, 5th or 6th, and qualify for the Europa League via league position. Now again, they're a 4.5-star team. They play a 5-3-2. They've got a budget of around 44 to 45 million pounds, and again, it's the post-Jack Grealish era, which make this team a really fun one to use in career mode this year. So as we know, Jack Grealish, club captain, Aston Villa through and through, in the summer had that mega money move to Manchester City, 100 million pounds. He was signed by Pep Guardiola, and after leaving Aston Villa after all the years, it's time for a rebuild. It's time for a rebuild at Villa Park, being in the Premier League still and trying to keep themselves where they are right now and make improvement going forward as well. Now again, it's a 4.5-star team. They've brought in a couple of players already this season, including Leon Bailey, Emi Buendia, who I'm an absolutely massive fan of, the former Canary. It's not a bad side whatsoever. The question is it top 6 quality? Looking at the team right now, you definitely said they could make a case for that, but they probably are going to need a little bit of improvement. Now, as the players that deals come to the end of the year, you've got quite a lot of them. Obviously, Twansby is loaned in from the Red Devils. A few players are currently loaned out. Ashley Young, of course, came back to Villa Park and signed that very short-term deal. Personally, I would only recommend giving contracts to a couple of the youngsters. Chris Sane, who is the young fullback, and also Swinkles as well, who's not a bad young player. Both have mid to high 70 potential. Worth keeping just in case they develop into really good players. There's only one player I put on the transfer list though. Again, it might need a rebuild, this club, but I wouldn't really look to sell everyone in the very first transfer window. There's only a couple of players I'd look to let go of. Courtney House has his deal at come the end of the year, and also Trezeguet as well. You've got an abundance of wingers here with Aston Villa. That's the one thing you'll notice when you come in with Buendia and Bailly, Trezeguet, Traore and so on. I'd look to sell at least one of them, and Trezeguet we sold to Galatasaray for a relatively cheap deal. You won't get much money for the wingers you currently have. You're not going to sell Buendia or Bay, who have just came in, but there's definitely a couple of those that I wouldn't be against selling, such as, again, Trezeguet and Traore, perhaps. We sold Trezeguet. He was the lowest rated of the lot. Didn't get much for him, but again, getting his salary off the books, the most important thing. It's a position here with Aston Villa you don't really need. If you're going to play a 5-3-2, like Dean Smith has the team set up in the game, then personally speaking, you're not going to need all of those wingers sat in the reserves, picking up a paycheck and not really doing much for you. We sold Courtney House to the Magpies as well. Steve Bruce's final bit of involvement before he was sacked, it appears, was to sign Courtney House from Aston Villa for £5.5 million. So again, not a big transfer fee, but again, a little bit of money, and most importantly, getting his salary off the books. And with Aston Villa, I would recommend two positions for this club primarily. Those are centre-half and centre-mid. The centre-back I would sign is Christensen from Chelsea. He is just an absolutely great bargain pickup in this year's career mode. You can get him for under the valuation of around 24-25 million pounds. You can get him for around 21, 22 mil, 20 million if you're lucky. He's 80 overall, which means he'll go right into the heart of your back five already. And again, at 25 years old, means he's currently about to enter his prime. And again, at 80 overall, very decent starting rating, but he's still got +5 for growth as well. So don't be put off by players that are in their mid-20s in career mode nowadays. In previous career modes, they just wouldn't grow at all. But nowadays, some of them have some pretty decent potential. Again, he grows 5 ratings to 85 overall. Physically, he isn't the best centre-half. That is true, no doubt about it. For a centre-back in the Premier League, you need more strength than 73. But I'll put him on a stopper development plan straight away. That will train the defensive work rate up to high. And again, get the physicals up as well. Christensen, definitely my #1 target. You should still have a little bit of money remaining after signing Christensen, because again, he will cost you very little money indeed, around close to his valuation. And I would recommend a new central midfielder as well. I'll go for a defensive based player to try and protect the back five as well. Two names I'd recommend, Dennis Zakaria of Borussia Mönchengladbach, and also Boubacar Kamara, the French holding midfielder as well. In the end, I opted to sign Zakaria because we got him for undervaluation. It was a 5-year deal, and as you can see again, 24 years old, yet he still has +6 for growth. He begins like Christensen at 80 overall, but he still gets to 86 potential at his peak. He's a really great young Swiss central midfielder that can also play centre back as well. Physically, the guy's brilliant, and again, defensively is where he's best. At 6'3", there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't transition this guy to play as a centre-back if you want. It will take him a long time to become a natural centre-mid, but again, centre-back is probably his best position, so if you want to retrain him to centre-half, you definitely can do. You've got the option there. Otherwise, give him a development plan, get the defensive work rate up to high, and again, make this guy a really decent player as quickly as you can. Again, 80 overall means you'll slide right into your midfield trio, be a great defense-based player to protect your back five. And I would recommend, as I do later on in this episode, is changing the current 5-3-2 you have to one of the default 5-3-2s. That way you can make two of your three midfielders defensive midfielders. That'll get rid of the exclamation mark on their player positions and roles, because they're currently operating as CMs and not CDMs. Regardless, we still had some money left over after the signings of Christensen and Zakaria, and I would recommend a backup right back as well. Now, on the left hand side, you've got Ashley Young coming back on the short term deal to be understudy for Matt Targett, but at right back, you've got no one to be a backup for Matty Cash, so I'd recommend bringing someone in. Two very good, cheap English fullbacks you can buy in this year's game are Tariq Lamptey of Brighton and also Jayden Bogle of Sheffield United as well. Bogle will probably be a little bit cheaper than Tariq Lamptey, but really the choice is yours. They start off the same age at 20 years old. I believe Lamptey is 74 overall and Bogle is 73 overall, but they're around the same overall with around the same potential regardless. So really, whoever's cheapest, that's who I would bring in. We signed Jayden Bogle on a really cheap deal. I'll make sure you get the defensive work rate up to high and make sure you get his stamina trained up as well. As a backup for Matty Cash, he'll fill in really nicely, but also with 84 potential means that in the future he'll probably become your starting right back, with Cash changing his role to a backup right back in this team. So I definitely recommend it for more squad depth and also to fill in as cover at right back where you've only got one current right back in Matty Cash. So the final thing we did after season ticket monies got added to our budget was sign a new backup striker. Obviously supporting Danny Ings, you've got Ollie Watkins as well. There's a couple of players that can play up top in this Aston Villa team, even if it's not their primary role, but I would recommend a new striker for this Aston Villa team to sit on the bench and be the long term for Danny Ings, who of course is no spring chicken nowadays. There's quite a few names I put on the shortlist, including these two guys here, Scamacca of Sassuolo and also Karim Adeyemi of RB Salzburg as well. This is an incredible young talent, as is Scamacca. He's 22 years old, 74 overall. I think that Adeyemi has a little bit more potential, but Scamacca's not a bad option. I chose the Italian in the end just for personal preference. 6'5", very, very strong. I've just always liked a target man, to be honest. I've always liked a really strong, physically strong, tall player up top, and that's what Scamacca is. He's 6'5", 84 strength already, just 22. If you put him on the target man development plan, that'll get his attacking work rate up to high and also improve the strength and the low stamina as well. So in the Aston Villa, we only sold 2 players for 11.9 mil. Like I said, I wouldn't sell that many players here with Aston Villa. You don't really need to, but we signed 4 players for 60 million, so it was a net loss of just under 50 million. But again, when you look at it, Christensen going into our first 11, Zakaria going to our first 11. There's the defensive midfield positions I was talking about earlier there by changing the 5-3-2 to a default one. And then you got Scamacca on the bench and Bogle as a backup right back for Matty Cash. We've given the side a bit more first team quality, a bit more depth, and made it younger as well. But the question is, could we finish in that Europa League spot in the first season and reach the last 16 in the FA Cup? 2 reasonably, doable objectives for Aston Villa. Not the easiest, but certainly things we could do. So as we simulate the end of the season, we find out how we got on, and as you can see, Well, I had to come back early to show you this. Yes, we reached the FA Cup final in the first season and beat the Tractor Boys, Ipswich Town, in the final. I could not wait to find out what else happened. In the Premier League, unfortunately, we fell short of our objective. We finished outside the European places altogether, 1 point behind Everton, who got the Europa Conference League, and 5 behind Arsenal, there was 6th Europa League side there. So that was quite disappointing in the league. To be fair, 8th is not bad for our first season in the post-Grealish era, and again, only missing out on 7th place, a Europa Conference League spot, by a point. But of course, that's rendered pointless because we won the FA Cup, and as we know, the winners of the FA Cup qualify for the Europa League. See, Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings, by the way, combined for 35 goals in the very first season. So Danny Ings coming in, great strike partnership in the first year there. I think it was 18 for Watkins and 17 for Ings, or the other way around. Even so, that's really, really impressive in the first season there with Danny Ings coming in. But yeah, for the Carabao Cup, as you can see, Chelsea won this. Obviously, doesn't count towards our objective, so wasn't really fussed one bit. But I'll show you where we got to in the end. It was a quarterfinals, being knocked out by Leicester City. But again, the FA Cup won by Aston Villa. Ipswich Town going all the way to the final, and we ended up beating them, besting them, and picking up a major honour in the very first season. So I thought that was incredibly impressive. We had to go through Man City and Liverpool to get there as well. So that was really, really cool. So in the end, whilst we might have failed our league objective, we did exceed our FA Cup objective. Last 16 is all the board wanted. We ended up winning the whole thing. I thought that was absolutely incredible, man. I thought that was amazing. I was buzzing with that. So, yeah, we had an FA Cup in the cabinet come the end of the season. And again, 8th place in the Premier League is pretty decent. It's a top 10 finish. And again, I'll reiterate it, we are only 1 point behind Everton, who would qualify for the Europa Conference League. So, whilst we might have technically failed our league objective, which again, we officially did, we still qualified for the Europa League. We just didn't do it the traditional way of finishing in 5th or 6th. We did it the alternative way of winning the FA Cup. So we will have European football of Villa part next season and a major honour in the cabinet as well. So I've got to say, I thought this was a really good first season. The board might have called our league season a failure, but top 10 is pretty decent on its own merit, and winning some silverware in the FA Cup as well. To me, that's a really good first season. When you think about the 4 signings coming in as well, all showing great growth in the first season, with Zakari going up by 3, I think it was. Christensen, who's going to get to 85 at his full potential. Skamaka grew by 3 ratings as well. This is a really fun team to use for a career mode this year. If you're looking for a side that needs to change, if you're looking for a side that needs a rebuild, needs to bring in some more young talent, look no further than Aston Villa. Great real stadium. I've been there before. Villa Park, absolutely lovely ground. Strong rivalry with Birmingham City, West Bromwich Albion and Wolves for your Premier League rivals as well. Really recommend using this team. It's a great side to use in career mode this year. They've got some lovely kits, an amazing real stadium, and again, in the post Jack Grealish era, a great team to use for a long-term project. Excellent side to use in FIFA career mode this year. Fully recommend. But that were this episode of Who to Sign For, guys. A big thank you for watching the episode. Really hope you have enjoyed it and appreciate the transfer tips. If you have enjoyed the episode, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.